program to where we are today. I mean, we've grown leaps and bounds in the way that we've pushed the agenda on accessibility, pushed the agenda on inclusiveness, and yes, much more remains to be done. But an incredible journey to have been a part of. So thank you very much for all what you do. You know, the occasion of the International Day for Persons with Disabilities is really to spotlight two things. Spotlight the need for a lot more awareness and sensitivity amongst all of us as a company, as an organization, as a society, as people. And of course, the second part and the more important part is to inspire ourselves with incredible stories of people with disabilities who've just faced all odds and have done exceedingly well in their lives, to be able to then tell us that, you know, there is a way forward for us. And we have one such exceptional person with us in the studios today, Tiffany Brar. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here with us. You know, if I have to just introduce Tiffany a little bit, and of course you can see how young and vivacious she is, but more importantly, she's a TEDx speaker. Somebody with an incredible life journey, which she's going to enlighten us in a bit. She runs an organization called Jyotirgamaya, which does much for the work of ensuring an equal place in the world for people with visual impairment. And, you know, she apparently has won several national awards, including being the national award winner for the best role model from the President of India himself, right? She's also recognized as an Indian community service worker and speaks 5 Indian languages. So Tiffany, incredible to have you here with us.
Thank you.
So let me just dive straight in. Can you talk to us a little bit about your story?
First of all, a very good afternoon to all at Accenture in different parts of the country, whoever is hearing me today. I'd like to thank you all for inviting me here. And I thank you, Danya ma'am and Sanjay sir. I thank you, Elrin. I thank you so much for all the efforts and the endless telephone calls.
Our pleasure, our pleasure, Tiffany.
Yes, and I thank you all for the initiatives you do. First of all, I wanted to ask, the first question I wanted to ask, are there blind people here in Accenture? And no one gave me a chance to ask this question because I was met by Faiz, who is also blind, and I'm really glad that Accenture does this. And also I'm glad to meet Roopa, the sign language interpreter. So already Accenture is doing a lot to accommodate persons with disabilities, and that is in itself really great. Now, I'm a bit under the weather, so please excuse my voice and my throat. In case I cough in between or something, please don't mind.
It's absolutely okay.
So I was born into a very rigid army family. My parents expected me to be a boy or expected me to join the army or, you know, some silly thing like that. And unfortunately, I turned out to be a girl, and due to the carelessness of a doctor, I became visually impaired. But now though my parents called it carelessness of a doctor, if I ever meet that doctor, I'd give him a pat on the back and a hug. And I'd say, thank you, doctor, wherever you are. Because had it not been for that doctor, I would not be sitting here today. I would not be sensitizing people. I would not be touching people. I would be living a life of comfort. Who wants to know about the lives of poor and disabled people when we are cooped up in our air-conditioned rooms with good jobs, with good salaries, good food to eat? We don't really care what's going on in the outside world, do we? We don't. So I'm glad I'm here today. And I grew up with a lot of discrimination. I started my education in Great Britain because my father had a posting there. And we learned by learning by doing. A lot of things we had to learn by feeling and touching. And at the age of 6, I came back, and it was a totally different system of learning, totally different language. I came to Kerala, which was a very foreign place to me because my father being a Punjabi and my mother being an Anglo-Indian, Kerala was a foreign land for me. But I found my identity there. I found myself conveniently rolling my tongue and speaking Malayalam, understanding the people, getting used to the language, getting used to the food, eating the things that the other small blind people ate there, eating on a banana leaf, doing a lot of things that other blind people did. But then my parents didn't want that. They didn't want me to be seen as that poor blind child in a blind school. They wanted me to be in the upmarket society. They tried to put me in sighted schools, but then the sighted schools also wouldn't have me. They would discriminate me and make me sit at the back bench, or make me play with something, or even chuck me out of the class because I gave the right answer. Could you believe it? So that was my turning point. And I said, no blind child is going to be thrown out of the classroom for having given the right answer. Imagine if you're blind and you're asked, the whole class is asked a question. You give the right answer and you're thrown out of the class because you're blind, because you're disabled. Is that right? Hello guys, is that right?
Certainly
I don't
doesn't
think
sound
so.
right.
It does not. So we have to react. But 9-year-old me could not react because no one was with me. My parents said, oh, you're really, really fortunate to get admission in this school, and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, I don't care. I don't want this school. I don't want your money. I don't want the school. I'm going back to the government blind school. And that's what I did. After some time, I went to Darjeeling. I went to another blind school. After some time, my father went to fight the Kargil war, as his duty called him. My mother was very sick, and in spite of our protests and pleas to my father not to go, he still went. He said his call for the nation was much more important than my mother and me. I felt he was a very cruel father, you know. How could he do that? But then I realize now that yes, he was very, very true to his nation. But then I fought all odds and ends, and soon I lost my mother too. That left me on a crossroad, in the middle of a traffic signal, not knowing which way to turn. Cars coming from my left and from my right. Me standing in the middle of a crossroad. And then something told me, go back to Kerala, where you felt yourself. I went back. I thought the same people will be waiting for me, the same vegetable sellers, the same teachers, the same people. But no, they were different. And I had to start life all over again. And I did. Things appealed to me even more. And I had to face life in a different light. It was not just listening to music and eating fish and rice on a banana leaf. It was learning. It was doing my own work, washing my own clothes, even washing my own plates, doing my own jobs. And I had to learn how to do it the best I could, because we weren't taught all these things properly. And then slowly I learned the best way I knew how. And then I finished my school. I went to Ooty. I studied in the army school. And there I passed my exams with 84%, my +2 boards, with the humanities. My 10th exam, unfortunately, I got only 78% because of the science subjects. Because no one teaches science properly to the blind people. We don't have any accessible labs like in Germany and in England. We don't have any tactile labs or any braille written. Now, certain schools are developing it. But when we were small, we didn't have that. So I still have no concept about tactile. So I did what everyone else does. I took humanities. Anyway, I finished my schooling. I did my BA in English. I started working. I started traveling alone. It was very difficult because my parents wouldn't let me travel alone, especially my father. He was like, oh no, something will happen to you. Someone will kidnap you. Someone will kill you. I said, I don't care. If it's written in my head that I have to die, they will come and kill me in my house also. So, if I have to die, I will die. I don't care. If that's what's written, that's what's going to happen. I cannot just be scared and sit at home. And that's what I want to tell all girls. Don't just be scared and sit at home and say, this is going to happen there. Yes, be careful. Yes. I wouldn't say just because you want to prove a point, go and stand on the road at 2 a.m. But if you need to, if you have some work, take all your strength and go, because you need to. Even God knows you need to. So don't just be scared. I was not scared. And that's what brings me here today. I worked. I went to other blind people's houses. I went as a translator for another organization. I went on field trips to people's houses. I saw the typical state of blind people who are tied to their beds, who are in their houses, who are closeted, just in one room. Could you believe that? Who are just given food, and who are just made to sit on one bed listening to the radio. And they know all the timings of the radio programs because they have nothing else to do. They're very good in general knowledge because they hear the news. Excuse me. So that is what I saw. Then I did my B.Ed in special education. And then I decided I have to change the lives of these blind people. Because I once faced this situation. I was once closeted, but I stood up. I stood up to my father. I stood up to my helper, who's like a mother for me. I stood up to my friends, and I said, I am going. I am doing it. But these people need strength. They need someone to support them. They are not as strong as me to stand up like that. So I gave them strength. I spoke to them. I spoke to their parents. First their parents said, oh, if you can, my son can't. I said, what's the difference between me and your son? I'm also blind. Look at me. I could understand if a sighted person comes here and tells you, you do this, you do that, because he's sighted. So you can easily say, yeah, it's all okay for you, but my son's blind. I'm blind. I'm standing here. I'm an example of my own target group. Can't you see me? And some of them gradually understood. Some of them just showed me where the door is and said, hey, out. Here's the door, out. So I was okay with that. I was like, okay, one less person. But I felt bad for that person. Because who would come there? Who would save that person? Who would? I still feel bad for those few people who I could not save, who I could not help, who I could not show the light of day. And I started a mobile blind school where I went to houses. First I went in a goods auto. Gud. But then I decided, no, I'm going to do this in public transport myself. I'm not going to go in a chauffeur-driven auto or vehicle or anything. I'm going to do this myself and show those parents and show those students that if I can, your kids can. And I walked on the inaccessible roads, on the windy roads, on the slopes, and I found their houses. I got down the bus. I did everything. I went to their houses. I taught them a few skills. And then I said, okay, now are you happy? Some people started sending their students out. I mean, their children out. Even elderly men. They had grown fat just sitting at home. I taught so many people mobility. There are two uneducated people who I taught computers, Android, mobility, and now they're out. They're teaching me Android now. They tell me what are the latest applications. And I'm like, yeah, they've overtaken me. I'm happy for that. One of my students has got a job in a bank. A few of my students have got jobs in hotels. Some are studying. Some are not working because of the attitude in Kerala that everyone wants a government job, because everyone is scared of these private jobs. It's not as open as it is here in Bangalore. People are not open. Companies are not open to employ people with disabilities. It's also the mindset. So the mindset of companies have to change. The mindset of the blind have to change, that we are willing to go for private jobs. We are willing to risk it, even if we're sacked. So what? The companies don't want to buy jaws and go through all that rigmarole and have some people helping these blind people. They don't want to go through that like they do here. But we want to change the mindset. We want to set the wheels in motion. In 2015, I started the Jyotirgamaya Foundation, my charitable trust, which has now completed 3 years. And we have completed 13 batches with 6 to 7 students per batch, because we give them special individualized training. We teach them how to use a stick, a white cane. Some people call it stick, but no, it's called a white cane. We teach them how to use an iPhone, an Android phone. We teach them how to use Windows, Linux, all the necessary screen reading softwares. We teach them orientation and mobility, how to board public transport, how to go and buy food, how to go and deposit money in a bank. We teach them these real life skills. This is what we do. And that's how I started doing my work.
Wow. What an incredible story. Truly touched and inspired just to hear the amount of obstacles that you would have had to overcome, and to think not just of yourself but of the entire community and do what you do. Tiffany, really, really proud to have you here with us today. Thank you so much for sharing the story. Just one question before I turn over to my colleague over here, but I believe that you have something called a Tiffany template that has been named after you. You want to tell us about that?
Template.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called. Well, it was named a friend of mine, Paul D'Souza. He's an inventor. He lives in Whitefield in Bangalore, and he is an inventor. He was inventing a refreshable braille display. He calls me Tiffy, and short for my name, Tiffany. And we were just chatting one day about how can we identify Indian currency notes. That still remains a challenge. And I said, why didn't you invent something, Paul? Hey, come on, you're a great inventor. Why don't you do something? And he made a low-cost template using cardboard and ATM card material to identify the old currency notes. And he called it as the Tiffy template because I gave him the idea.
How cool is that? Really lovely. Thank you so much. I'm going to come back to you with some more questions.
Great.
Those of you who are watching us live, feel free to send in your questions and we'll start taking them shortly. But in the meanwhile, I'm going to turn over to you, Fayaz. Fayaz Pasha. He's an employee of Accenture and been with us for the last decade plus. So Fayaz, why don't you tell us your story briefly?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I complete 11 years in Accenture in about 10 days' time. So but these 11 years have passed by as if it's just like yesterday. Why I say is that I joined Accenture. I was in part of the HR team. I did a couple of roles in HR. I was with the onboarding. I used to onboard people as fresh hires. Then I did talent acquisition. Then I had a stint with technology. I was into accessibility testing, and now I am currently with the industry practice.
Thank you for that. I remember all the years we used to keep running to you saying, Fayaz, can you just test this out for us? So thank you for all what you've done, Fayaz. Because you've been around for the last 11 years, right? You've seen Accenture's inclusion journey evolve, right? Your views on how far we've come now.
From the time I joined, I can give you an example, how much Accenture has grown. I have been personally reaping the rewards, actually, from how Accenture has got inclusive. There was a time when most of our tools were not working with JAWS. And, I remember a conversation back in 2008 with one of the CIO engineers. And, at that time, a person did not even know how to help me. And now when I walk up to a lot of people in CIO and tell them that it's not working, they very clearly identify what is the wrong and they've given me fixes. So that in itself actually shows that how much Accenture has grown, how much awareness that now our people have. Over a period of 10 years, I have seen applications becoming accessible, facilities becoming accessible to PWD resources, and immense number of growth in PWD resources. I remember I was told that I was the first visually impaired resource in India to be hired, and I can now count at least 10 to 12 that I know personally. So it has been an incredible journey. Unlike other organizations, Accenture never looks PWD as a CSR initiative. As Dhanya was saying in her introduction, we have a full-fledged PWD program, and I've been very, very fortunate to work with Accenture because I have personal rewards. And one of the reasons for my longevity here is because of the immense support system that we have here for the PWD resources.
Thank you for that, Faiz. It was interesting that you spoke about Accenture. One of the things that I think that has been philosophically, vouched for within Accenture is that we believe that everybody, irrespective of their abilities or disabilities, needs to be in mainstream jobs that they choose to, they have the skills to do and want to do, rather than predetermining what someone can or can't do based on their disabilities,
yes.
right? So,
yes.
Which is why we have, people like you, Faiz, doing, whatever that you've wanted to do so far, and many of our people doing so many mainstream jobs. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. Just one last thing before I turn over to the questions that are starting to come in. So, Faiz, you're a role model for many of our employees with disabilities, right? And formally, informally, they keep reaching out to you. Any tips from your experience that you want to share with the broader audience?
I would only like to say that, please reach out if you need help, because Accenture is such a vast organization. Not all may be aware of what Accenture has an offer for the PWD resources. So if you need help, reach out, and please do not expect anyone to come out and help you, to ask you, or because not always it can happen. And don't expect any less competition just because you're a PW resource. So reach out, there's help on hand, but stay on your toes.
Yeah, I'd like to just add to that point,
Sure.
if I may. Actually, don't allow people to see you as an object of sympathy. Let people see you as you, not as your disability, not as, oh, that blind man or that deaf guy. No, as you, as Tiffany or Fayaz or whoever. Because you are a person first, then you're a PWD. So let not your impairment or your disability determine or come in the way of who you are.
That's well said. That's well said. In fact, I'm starting to see questions come in from the audience. So, Tiffany, this one is actually for you. How have you developed the courage to face the rejection that you faced so early on in your life?
Well, I think I was a rebellion. I think it's in my blood. I don't know, but maybe having an army dad, or maybe it's in my blood. But also, I've always wanted to be strong. I've always wanted to overcome whatever I'm facing. And I don't want to be everyone's darling. So yes, if I don't stand up for myself, who will? Because I had no one to stand up for me. I mean, there are a lot of people who have, okay, brother will talk for me, sister will talk for me. Like I have a student, and she's from, a North Indian state, and she says, oh, my brother will talk for me, my brother will tell my parents. I said, how long will your brother tell your parents? You have to tell them. You. It's not your brother, it's you. So for me, it was always me. I had no brother. I had no one else to, do the shifarat work for me. So it was always me who had to stand up and tell my father or my teacher or my colleagues or my, whoever.
Amazing. So, Faiz, there is one question for you.
Okay.
How did you start your career journey?
After my graduation, I worked for another organization for about a year, and Accenture for me was always a company that I wanted to get in. The reason why is that my brother is here in Accenture, and he's been here for about 15-16 years, and he used to speak only positive things about it. And I always wanted to be in a place where where it is where you are respected. And at that time I knew respect for individual is one of the Accenture's core values, even before I joined. So that was a motivation for me to get into Accenture.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So, Tiffany, the next one is actually for you. Having worked extensively with people with disabilities at the grassroots level, any suggestions on how to actually engage with with them and bring them as part of the mainstream?
Well, when you, well, first of all, the attitude of the person with disability himself or herself should change. Now, when you meet a person with disability, if you're interviewing someone, first give them confidence, you know, make them feel that they're wanted, you know, because everybody needs love. Every person with disability is most probably people are depressed. I don't know, did you feel depressed at any point, Fayaz?
No, no.
Okay, so fortunately...
I had a good family support system.
Yeah,
so
but there
I
are
was
many
fortunate.
people who don't. Yeah, so always make the person feel that they wanted, they can, they have all the talents, and that we will help them along the way if they get stuck. That's the belief that you should try to instill in your employees when you employ them. Give them that helping hand, show them that everything's, just guide them along the way until they master what they have to master. Even if the English is not so good, guide them a little bit and give them some other talk, but you know, try to enable them, empower them. Don't just, in most government offices I've seen people say, okay, usko udhar bitha dena, tankha mil jayega, you know, he'll get his salary at the end of the month. No. We have to earn our salary. So make the person know that they're wanted, they're useful, they are needed. That's what you should do when you employ a person with disability. Also, you should know how to guide them by holding them like this, I mean like the sighted guide. When you're helping a hearing impaired person, make sure there's an interpreter or a captioner to help them. If there's a wheelchair user, make sure there are ramps and there's accessibility, there are accessible toilets. Everything should be taken into account. Make them feel that the world is equally theirs.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. There's one last question which incidentally seems to be for me. How does Accenture support the inclusion of disabilities in the workplace? There's a lot that Accenture does. One, there's a very structured approach to how we go about this, which includes our framework on accessibility, which is technological accessibility, attitudinal accessibility, and workplace accessibility. The other part of it is making sure that as you think about the end-to-end career journey of an employee, starting right from the time that somebody gets hired, to onboarded, to making sure that they're feeling settled within the system, assignment of buddies and sponsors, and then as you think about career trajectories, what are we doing for the investment of our people with disabilities? In fact, last year we launched what is called as the Persons with Disabilities Leadership Development Program, which was Abilities Unleashed, with the sole intention of making sure that our high-performing managers and associate managers are actually being further, guided along their leadership journey of authenticity and making sure that we are getting them ready for the next levels. So lots that is there as it relates to our inclusion diversity efforts for inclusion of people with disabilities. The biggest one, I must say, is the role that our Persons with Disabilities Champions Network plays. It is a network of all our employees who have put their hands up to say that they believe in disability inclusion, and each one of them tirelessly work towards spreading the message, creating the awareness, and making sure that we become a better place for people with disabilities. So that's in a very high level of what we do. So with that, I'm actually going to turn to Shailaja. Shailaja Bhagwatullah, she's our Managing Director for Cloud Practice in ATCI. But more importantly, she is our Inclusion Diversity Sponsor for Accenture in India. So Shailaja, over to you for closing comments, please.
Good afternoon, one and all, and thank you so much for being with us today. And of course, a big thank you to Tiffany for sparing her time to talk to us today. Tiffany, your story is just nothing short of inspiring. You have led the way for so many people here, and we at Accenture wish you the very best in all your future endeavors. And of course, Fayaz, it's always a pleasure to have you around. Thank you for what you do every single day for Accenture. And we are what we are because of what employees like you do every single day. Diverse teams offer a unique perspective on how to solve business problems. And our belief in this agenda makes Accenture stronger, smarter, more innovative, and a better performing company across all dimensions. While we may celebrate the International Day of Persons with Disabilities today, it is important for this idea of celebrating abilities to come alive every single day. I call upon each and every one of you to commit to taking that one action that you will do to ensure equality. It's on each and every one of us to break through the barriers that separate us by starting a new conversation and backing up our words with actions every day. Remember, getting to equal starts with each and every one of us. Thank you once again for joining us today as we celebrate abilities.